Parliamentary Procedures Committee, cross-party Parliamentary Procedures Committee, says babies and children should be banned from the House of Commons chamber. It follows, I'm sure you remember it, the Labour MP for Walthamstow, Stella Creasy, criticised by some, lauded by others, for bringing her 3-month-old son into the debating chamber last year. Right or wrong, this parliamentary committee to arrive at this ruling? The Conservative commentator, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, joins me here in the studio. Angelica Malin, the editor-in-chief of About Time magazine, is offering a potentially different perspective on this. Angela, can we start with you? We've got this ruling, no babies, no children, get on with the grown-up debate.
Yeah, that just doesn't fly for me at all. I think that Westminster needs to be family friendly, it needs to be progressive, and it has to set an example to other workplaces, and it feels incredibly behind.
Calvin Robinson.
I don't think it's an appropriate place to have a young baby screeching, to be honest with you. It's the most important work in the land, legislating our laws. And before anyone starts, it's not an anti-woman stance, it's not a misogynistic stance. I don't mind if it's a man or a woman taking a baby into the chambers. It's not a place for a baby.
Angelica, I mean, if you've got an important piece of parliamentary business, maybe one of our elected representatives trying to develop a complicated theme, thinking on their feet, stream of consciousness, suddenly there's a wailing baby. I've nursed enough of them over the years to know that they can be quite disruptive, and this is not the place. The cockpit of the nation, where we frame our laws, is not the place for that kind of potential disturbance.
I mean, yes, it could potentially be distracting, but I think the larger issue is the optics around not allowing a woman to bring a baby or a child into the workplace when there is a childcare crisis. The cost of childcare is spiralling. Many women are being forced out of the workplace because they literally can't afford childcare. And until there's solutions for that, what can be expected? And I think people look to politics to understand what's going on in the workplace generally. And I don't think that it necessarily needs to be distracting, like those photos that you saw, the baby wasn't crying. And perhaps if that is the case, there can be solutions in place for that. But, and Calvin saying, I don't care if it's men or women, like, let's be honest, most likely it's going to be a woman who's bringing in a baby.
It's quite a sexist remark, really.
Is that the case?
Not at all. Are you saying that men can't look after their babies?
Of the childcare and women are more likely to be the ones taking longer maternity leave. They're more likely to be ones burdening more of the childcare costs.
That's another issue, isn't it, Angela?
Load.
That's another issue.
It is another issue, but unless we make workplaces more progressive, these issues aren't going to be tackled.
But if you're voting for someone to represent you as your local representative in the Houses of Parliament, surely you don't want them to be on maternity leave. Surely you want them there voicing your opinions and representing your local area. If they're off on maternity leave repeatedly, how are you getting any representation in the democratic process? You're not really, are you?
Well, I'm going to come in at this point because I think there's a couple of points we need to make clear. My understanding is that you'll be allowed to take babies and children onto the parliamentary estate.
There is a creche in Parliament as well.
But it's just the chamber. But, Calvin, do you accept that as a signal to society at large, that the idea of a man or a woman going into the chamber, cradling an infant, is quite a powerful, even pro-natalist symbol at a time when our fertility rate has crashed? We've got a pyramid that's deeply inverted. It should be like this in terms of tax. Sorry, it should be like that with lots of taxpayers at the bottom funding pensioners and the welfare state, and it's the reverse. So actually, as a symbol, as a signal to society that we are pro-child, it's a powerful one.
It is a powerful one, but it's not one I agree with. I am the most pro-family guy you'll ever meet, but I don't think people should be taking their partner, their spouses into the Houses of Parliament either. It's not a place for symbols, it's a place for legislation. It's a place for very serious business. It's a place of high standards. You know, there's a reason that they have to wear shirt and tie and jacket. They can't just rock up in their pyjamas. They can't just have their baby in a blanket in front of them. They've got serious work to begin on with, and it's very important when we've got a cost of living crisis, a war to our flight away, and we're just coming out of a pandemic, that there's so many serious issues to be getting on with. For them to be nursing their baby at the same time, I don't think it's appropriate.
Angelica, it trivialises parliamentary business. I
just don't agree with that, and I don't think people only look to it for for legislation. I think they do look for representation, and that representation really matters. That's why this has become such a big news story. And I think it probably shouldn't be so newsworthy that a woman takes her baby into the workplace. It's a symbol of the representation of how difficult it is to manage the career that you want and to have a family, and how difficult that burden is. And like, we need to make these places more progressive. And to your point earlier about women going on maternity leave, I fundamentally find that quite a problematic stance, because we should be encouraging women into politics. We should be voting for women. And if you're worried that a woman is going to like not focus on the job because she wants to have a family, I think that's a really problematic way to look at it. And by not allowing women to bring babies into Parliament when they are juggling childcare, it's going to put women off wanting to go into politics as well.
It's fair enough saying my view is problematic, but you still haven't answered the question. It's a very important question. If people are voting for someone to represent them and that person is no longer in the chamber for months at a time, repeatedly, they're not going to have any representation. How do we get around that? Because I'm all for increasing family. I'm all for increasing people raising kids. But can you do that and be in the chamber at the same time? Does it work? Is it conflicting?
Well, if you let them bring their baby in, then they can come off maternity leave sooner, so maybe.
OK, that's where we're going to leave it. We're out of time. Angelica, Malin and the Reverend Calvin Robinson, thanks both very much indeed for your time.